Look at this mask, the defining image of ancient Egypt. Born around 1341 BC, Tutankhamun is remembered today as a pristine, golden god king. But the reality underneath that mask was very different. Tutankhamun was a frail teenager. He lived with a painful clubfoot, relying on walking canes, and suffered from a barrage of chronic illnesses. This relief shows Tutankhamun's father, Akhenaten, who shuttered the traditional temples and severed diplomatic ties with neighbors like the Mitanni. As the kingdom's economy weakened and internal unrest grew, the boy was born into a country in deep turmoil. Tutankhamun was born into a paradox. He was the sole male heir to a global superpower, inheriting the throne right as his father's religious revolution was fracturing the state. To understand why he was so physically fragile, we have to look at the practices of the 18th dynasty. To keep the royal bloodline pure, the Egyptian royal family practiced extreme intermarriage for generations. DNA from royal mummies proves Tutankhamun's father, Akhenaten, and his mother were full brother and sister. This overlapping DNA caused severe complications. The skeletal map reveals a painful clubfoot, a bone necrosis condition called Kolar disease, and an immune system vulnerable to repeated malarial infections. When Akhenaten died suddenly, the controversial new capital was abandoned. At just 9 years old, this child was thrust onto the throne of a kingdom on the brink of collapse. At 9 years old, he became the final direct heir of the 18th dynasty. He was a child, crippled by the very family traditions meant to preserve his power, tasked with holding together a shattered empire. A 9-year-old pharaoh does not rule an empire. Tutankhamun served as a figurehead for an inner circle of older, ambitious men, specifically the military commander Horemheb and the vizier Ai. These advisors orchestrated a massive political shift. They used the young king's authority to dismantle Akhenaten's reforms, abandoning the sun god Aten and restoring the traditional Egyptian gods to power. This statue depicts the commander Horemheb towering behind the young pharaoh. To signal their return to the old order, the advisors even changed the boy's name from Tutankhaten, meaning living image of Aten, to Tutankhamun, pledging allegiance to the god Amun. His entire reign was a managed performance to erase his father's legacy. The boy king was largely a prisoner of his own court, signing edicts written by the men standing behind his throne. Official state artwork depicted Tutankhamun as a mighty warrior striking down enemies from a chariot. But archaeology tells a different story. Excavators found 130 walking canes buried alongside him, many showing signs of heavy use. His personal life reflected the same weight of expectation and failure. He was married as a child to his half-sister, Enki-Senamun, in a desperate attempt to produce a healthy heir and secure the royal succession. They failed. Alongside the gold and the chariots, archaeologists discovered 2 tiny mummified fetuses in the tomb. They were his daughters, both stillborn. The king's own end came swiftly when he was roughly 19 years old. Modern scans point to a fatal combination: multiple bouts of malaria combined by a severely infected broken left leg, likely the result of a fall. When Tutankhamun died, he took the last hopes of his family tree with him. His death extinguished the direct royal bloodline of the 18th dynasty. In the immediate aftermath, his former advisors seized the throne. The vizier Ai took power, and Tutankhamun's young widow vanished from the historical record shortly after. Look closely at this temple wall. You can see the gouges where original inscriptions were violently removed. His successors systematically chiseled Tutankhamun's name off monuments across Egypt, claiming his construction projects as their own, to wipe his reign from history. His burial was just as rushed. He was placed in KV 62, a tiny, non-royal tomb. Over 5,000 objects, including dismantled chariots and golden furniture, were shoved into the antechamber in complete disarray to finish the burial quickly. But their attempt to forget him backfired. Because his name was scrubbed from the king lists, and because workers building later tombs dumped tons of rubble directly over his entrance, ancient grave robbers simply never knew he was there. The attempt to deny him an afterlife in antiquity provided the very camouflage that ensured his physical preservation for the modern world. When British archaeologist Howard Carter finally pierced the tomb's seal in 1922, The sheer volume of undisturbed gold triggered a global media frenzy, complete with sensational rumors of a pharaoh's curse, punishing anyone who entered. This vintage newspaper spread shows how quickly the boy became a commodity. King Tut morphed into a global pop culture icon, commercialized and sensationalized more than any other ruler in Egyptian history. It has taken a century of scientific advancement to finally look past the treasure. Modern CT scans and DNA testing have bypassed the gold, giving the frail, forgotten boy his true human identity back. Egypt's pharaohs spent their lives building colossal monuments in a bid to live forever. Tutankhamun's immortality is the result of his fragility and the series of historical accidents that followed his death.